I remember the early years of our marriage as if they were a beautiful, painted scene. Emily and I laughed so much, our apartment always echoed with our voices. But over time, life slipped quietly between the cracks. She started staying up late on her phone, I buried myself in work. Little things became big silences. We no longer asked about each other's day, and I didn't notice how the distance grew. One evening, I watched her in the kitchen, staring at her phone, and realized I hadn't truly looked at her like that in months. I felt a pang of fear I hadn't known before. Our first arguments were almost laughable: who forgot to pay the bills, who didn't wash the dishes, but underneath it, there was a tension neither of us could name. Every small fight left a heavy weight. I would go to bed thinking about nothing and everything at the same time. I wanted to fix it, to reach her, but the harder I tried, the further she seemed to drift. And I hated myself for it. One night, I woke to find Emily standing in the living room, her phone pressed to her ear. I froze in the shadows, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. Her whispering voice, soft and trembling, was a sound I had never heard before. My heart thumped so loudly I feared she could hear it. That night, I realized marriage could be fragile, that love, no matter how deep, could almost break if we ignored each other. I remembered the first time I saw her. A coffee shop, rainy afternoon, she laughed at a terrible joke I made. That laugh was music. We didn't have much money, but we had dreams, hope, and belief in each other. And somewhere along the way, we forgot how to keep that alive. Flashbacks came flooding in, the first trip, the first argument, the first, "I love you," whispered in the dark. All those moments reminded me why I couldn't let go. Weeks passed, and tension grew. One evening, Emily finally snapped at me over something trivial. I shouted back, and the words that left my mouth were sharper than I intended. She said, "I don't even know who you are anymore." Those words hit me harder than any physical blow. I sat in silence, listening to the quiet of our apartment, realizing that if we didn't change, we'd lose everything. I started noticing the small things, how she tucked our child's blanket, how she stared at the ceiling before sleeping. I realized I had stopped paying attention to her life. I had become self-absorbed, and in doing so, I risked the only thing I truly loved. I promised myself I would fight, even if she didn't notice at first. The next day, Emily left a note on the kitchen counter: "We need to talk, or we'll lose everything." I stared at it for minutes, my hands shaking. That was her cry for help, and it hit me: this was my last chance. That night, we sat down on the couch without phones, without distractions. I asked, "Do you still love me?" Her eyes filled with tears as she said, "Yes, but I feel invisible." I realized that love wasn't enough, we had to notice, care, and act. Over the next weeks, we rebuilt slowly. Walks in the park, making dinner together, laughing at old inside jokes. Each small moment was a brick in the wall of trust we had unknowingly torn down. We started therapy, and at first, it was awkward. But it became a safe space to share our fears, our loneliness, and our regrets. We learned to say, "I feel," instead of "you always," and slowly, the walls between us crumbled. One night, looking at old photographs, she leaned on my shoulder. "Thank you for not giving up," she whispered. I realized love isn't about perfection, it's about persistence, courage, and choosing each other every day. We began noticing the small acts: bringing coffee in the morning, leaving notes, holding hands while watching TV. Each gesture reminded us why we started this journey together, and how much it meant to fight for it. Marriage is never free of challenges. We still argued occasionally, but now, every argument ended with understanding instead of resentment. We learned to fight fair, to listen, and to love even when it was hard. Laughter returned slowly. Movie nights, spontaneous walks, and quiet moments together reminded us that joy isn't loud, it's shared. And in sharing, we healed more than we expected. If you are listening and struggling, remember, silence destroys, but honesty heals. Love is not just about feeling, it's about choosing to stay, to listen, to act. Emily and I survived because we refused to give up. And perhaps that is the truest form of love.